Welcome to Talk Tickers.
Hey there.
So today we're opening with a piece of corporate news that really has the legal wires humming. We're talking about Anywhere Real Estate. They're facing at least 3 lawsuits related to their big proposed merger with Compass.
The $1.6 billion deal. Yeah. And if it closes, that creates the largest brokerage enterprise in the world.
In the world. But, you know, while that consolidation is big news, I think we should probably see these lawsuits as a bit of a distraction from what's really happening.
I completely agree. This merger is taking place against a backdrop of, well, a fundamental depth structural transformation in the housing market.
Right.
The whole system that actually determines the value of every single house they sell, the appraisal system, is being completely rebuilt from the ground up.
That's a huge pivot. Okay, so let's quickly frame the corporate story first.
Right.
The lawsuits, they were filed by some shareholders, right?
Yeah.
McDaniels, Marino, and Drulius.
That's right. And their claim is that Anywhere failed to provide complete or accurate financial disclosures about the merger.
And the company response.
Well, both Anywhere and Compass are saying the claims have no merit, but they went ahead and filed supplemental disclosures anyway.
So they're just trying to avoid any delays.
Exactly. They just want to get it done, especially because this deal was already getting a ton of scrutiny from the outside.
Ah, that's right. We had 2 U.S. senators raising antitrust concerns, didn't we? Worried about the combined market share in some of the big metro areas.
Exactly. So you've got this front-end consolidation, the big brokerages merging.
While the back end, the actual valuation industry, is being forced into this massive technological revolution.
And that's the real story here. We're talking about the U.S. residential real estate appraisal industry. It's an $11.3 billion a year business.
So what's the mandate? What's forcing this change?
It's a regulatory force. It stems from the government-sponsored enterprises, the GSEs.
Okay.
They've mandated something called the Uniform Appraisal Data Set, or UAD 3.6, and it has to be implemented by 2026.
And this is not just saying small tweak.
No, this is not an incremental change. This is a seismic shift for the entire industry.
Okay, let's unpack that. UAD 3.6. What does it actually require people to do?
Well, it forces appraisal away from being what we'd call a craft-based practice.
Where an appraiser just submits like a subjective document with their thoughts.
Exactly, a narrative document. And it's moving it into a data-driven science. The output now has to be in a structured, machine-readable XML data format.
So appraisals are going from documents you read to data sets you can analyze.
That's the perfect way to put it.
That sounds like more than just a technical filing change. The implications for how information is produced must be, well, huge.
Staggering. A traditional appraisal form might have captured, say, 150 data points.
Okay.
Under these new UAD 3.6 rules, appraisers have to collect over 700 granular data points.
700, wow.
And that level of standardization is necessary because the old system, that craft-based system, it had some really systematic, demonstrable flaws that were introducing serious credit risk into the market.
Okay, so before we get to the solution, we have to really understand the problem. What were these flaws in human appraisals that UAD 3.6 is trying to fix?
There are 2 big empirical failures. The first one is just pure measurement variability.
Okay.
Studies that looked at properties with repeat appraisals found that different appraisers measuring the exact same house reported the gross living area, or the GLA, with measurements that differed by over 100 square feet in a full 25% of cases.
100 square feet in a quarter of all appraisals.
A quarter of them, yeah.
I mean, if you're in a high-cost area where homes are, what, $500, $1,000 per square foot?
Right.
That single error instantly becomes a $50,000 to $100,000 swing in the valuation. How is that an acceptable level of error?
It's not. It's just not. And that's why the standardization is so critical. But the second flaw is, I would argue, even more dangerous to the system.
And that is?
Contract price confirmation bias.
Yes. We've all heard the stories, right?
See?
The appraisal always seems to land right at the contract price.
It's not just anecdotal. Fannie Mae investigated this directly.
And what did they find?
They found that when an appraiser knew the contract price, it resulted in 23% more properties appraising at or above that price than unbiased models would predict.
23%. So basically, a quarter of the time, the appraiser gets the agreed upon price and just rubber stamps the deal instead of being an independent check on the value.
Precisely. The valuation gets anchored to the sale price, which completely defeats the purpose of having an appraisal to prevent excess credit risk in the first place.
That's the real systemic danger.
And that's what UAD 3.6 is designed to eliminate by forcing appraisers to justify every single data point, every adjustment with standardized, auditable data.
Okay, so UAD 3.6 lays the foundation. Standardized, machine-readable data, pushing appraisal toward a science. So who stepped in to take advantage of this new data fire hose?
The algorithmic investors. Immediately, the ability to ingest and process that new, clean, structured data stream was just transformative. Specifically, you had this staggered digitization of county property records all across the U.S.
Turning all those old, messy legal records into machine-readable data.
Exactly. Yeah. And that immediately lowered the cost of doing accurate, large-scale algorithmic valuation.
So what was the impact on the market when the data suddenly became that clean?
It was fast. These specialized corporate entities, the algorithmic investors using, advanced machine learning, they just flooded into the market.
From what? Basically nothing.
From a negligible purchase share before digitization, yeah. And afterward, it quickly swelled to represent about 20% of all investor purchases.
That is a huge and very rapid shift in who is buying homes.
It is. And crucially, these algorithms weren't just buying randomly. The data shows they were chasing a known market inefficiency. They were acting as an arbitrage function against a persistent human bias.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
This is the most compelling finding in all the research. These algorithmic investors disproportionately targeted homes that were being sold by minority homeowners.
Disproportionately by how much?
Their share of transactions involving minority sellers was double their overall market share. So about 4% of minority seller transactions versus just 2% of the market overall. It strongly suggests they sensed these homes were undervalued.
Wow. That fundamentally changes how you think about market efficiency. You're looking at cold, hard, data-driven computation, stepping in and actually correcting a societal failure.
That's what happened. And the outcome was a demonstrable and rapid reduction in these long-standing racial pricing disparities.
Okay, so what was the number?
Prior to the county digitization and the entry of these algorithms, there was an observed race penalty.
Which is the price gap within a neighborhood between similar homes, right?
Exactly, between observably similar homes. And that penalty averaged 5.8%.
5.8%. That is a significant, persistent discount just based on the seller's race.
It was. But after digitization and the entry of these algorithmic investors, that race penalty shrank by 45%. It declined sharply to 3.2%.
45%.
And this convergence was only seen in the counties where the algorithmic investors actually became active, which really isolates them as the cause.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
It's evidence that pure competition, when it's driven by transparent data, can solve problems that, regulation and rhetoric have struggled with for decades.
It really is. And the wealth implications are massive.
Put it in context for us.
Okay, so the overall effect of digitization raised average sale prices by about 3%. But for minority-owned homes, prices went up by a full 5%.
And that 5%.
That 5% price increase is hugely significant. It's equivalent to 38% of median Black household wealth and 25% of median Hispanic household wealth. It's a massive transfer of unrecognized value back to the sellers.
Let that just sink in for a moment. A change in data formatting and the entry of some machine learning models led to one of the most immediate and significant wealth transfers to historically marginalized communities that we've seen in modern housing finance.
It's pretty incredible.
But wait, if the algorithmic investors only accounted for, 20% of investor transactions?
Yeah.
How do they influence the other 80%?
That's the mechanism of change. And it just shows the power of competitive pressure.
Okay.
The algorithms themselves, they paid similar prices for similar homes regardless of who the seller was, but their competitive bids, even on the houses they didn't win.
Right.
They pressured all the other buyers, the human investors, the owner-occupiers, to raise their offers to match.
So the algorithm's entry forced the entire market to confront the true unbiased value.
Exactly. It reduced the penalty on every single transaction in that county from that point forward.
That is fascinating. It's not just that the algorithm found the fair price, it forced the human competition to adopt it too. Okay, let's dive into the technology that's making this possible.
Sure.
Because valuation requires complex reasoning. This isn't just, a simple linear regression.
Oh, not at all. You're right. Professional valuation requires a pretty sophisticated AI architecture, what we're calling agentic AI systems.
Agentic AI?
Yeah. Think of it as like the ultimate smart assistant for doing all this paperwork. These systems are capable of goal-directed behavior. They can break down the complex task of valuation. They can search across all these fragmented MLS databases and public records.
And compile the 700-plus data points that UAD 3.6 requires.
Autonomously, yes.
That level of automation must rely pretty heavily on capturing precise physical data from the property itself. The old way was a guy with a tape measure. How is that changing?
The physical data layer is evolving incredibly fast. It's leveraging technology like 3D Gaussian splatting 3D GS and LiDAR sensors, which are now standard in, high-end smartphones and tablets.
And these create, detailed 3D models and floor plans?
Exactly. They can rapidly create these models, essentially turning the house into a digital twin that can be shared and assessed from anywhere.
So you replace the human with a digital scan. That sounds perfect, but I'm guessing there's a catch. How reliable is that data?
That is the critical caveat. While the vendors will market very, very tight tolerances, real-world errors in these physical measurements routinely exceed those marketed tolerances by 5 to 10 times.
5-10x?
Yeah. Practitioners really need to assume something like a 3 to 5% accuracy margin in their measurements, not the sub 1% that's often claimed.
Which highlights why human expertise, just validating those physical inputs, is still essential.
It absolutely is.
And this brings us to the core tension here. We have these highly sophisticated AI models processing all this complex data.
Huh.
But if the AI is making credit decisions, how do regulators trust the outcome? I mean, we all remember the 2008 financial crisis. Opaque valuations tied to credit risk caused a systemic failure.
That history is exactly why transparency is the paramount mandate. Regulators cannot and will not allow AI models that influence credit decisions to be opaque black boxes.
Right.
The industry has to be able to audit and understand why a valuation came out the way it did.
So what's the technical fix for the black box problem in this kind of regulated environment?
The industry is basically sacrificing a little bit of marginal predictive performance for guaranteed transparency. And they're doing that by adopting what are called glass box models.
Glass box models?
Yeah. The best example is probably the generalized additive model, or GAM. These models are, by their very nature, interpretable.
How does a GAM differ from, say, a typical AI that might be running a search engine?
Well, a traditional neural network gives you an answer, but you can't really trace the full decision path. A GAM, on the other hand, is like a highly detailed automated spreadsheet. It decomposes the total value into multiple transparent additive components. It doesn't just give you a final number, it shows you its work.
Can you give us an example of how it would show its work?
Sure. Instead of just spitting out a value, the GAM can actually show you that, for example, the property's value increase from living area follows a specific nonlinear curve.
Okay.
Or that age depreciation is steepest in the first 15 years and then it levels out. This allows for explainability through mechanisms like SHAP values, and more importantly, it enables powerful counterfactual explanations.
Like what?
Like, the property would appraise $50,000 higher if the kitchen was updated from its 1990s vintage to a modern one.
That kind of specific counterfactual language.
Yeah.
That aligns perfectly with the historical methodology that appraisers have always used. It's compliant with the regulations, like USPAF.
Exactly. It bridges the gap between modern machine learning and the regulatory requirements.
The whole transformation from UAD 3.6 to agentic AI and glassbox models, it's forging a much more data secure and, it seems, a less biased housing finance system.
That's the goal.
Okay, let's try to synthesize all this. We started with corporate consolidation in the brokerage world, but we've really uncovered a far more powerful structural change happening in the system that actually validates all those deals.
Right. Regulatory mandates and this technological disruption are rapidly pushing real estate valuation toward data science, and in the process, they're correcting these massive historical market failures.
And the key takeaway seems to be that algorithms, just by chasing an economic arbitrage opportunity that was created by data standardization, have achieved a rapid and significant reduction in racial pricing disparities. It's a remarkable outcome, driven by nothing more than pure market competition against human bias.
It's an incredible story, and while it sounds overwhelmingly positive, it does make me wonder, what new risks does this shift introduce? The final provocative thought for the future.
I think it's all about speed. The rapid retraining capability of these AI models, their ability to adapt to new market data much, much faster than human appraisers can.
That could actually accelerate market volatility during big economic transitions. If market conditions change quickly, the algorithms can update their valuation models almost instantly, leading to potentially much sharper swings in property values.
So managing the throttle on that technological change, managing model update frequencies, that's going to be essential for stability.
Mandated human oversight, careful management, it's going to be critical to maintain systemic stability, yes.
Excellent point. Okay, now for our final segment. This is not financial advice.
Of course.
But we have to acknowledge the market structure implications of everything we've just discussed. The value chain of real estate valuation is clearly fragmenting.
It's being completely remade. The old model, the one dominated by the appraisal management company, the AMC, that model is rapidly becoming obsolete.
Because AMCs were just labor intermediaries, right?
Yeah.
Matching human appraisers to lenders.
Exactly. But as the process shifts to automated data collection, agentic AI analysis, and UAD 3.6 compliance, the AMC's traditional value proposition just evaporates.
So if that middleman is drying up, where's the trade opportunity?
Well, our plausible but outrageous trade idea would be this. Short, a basket of traditional appraisal management companies. Specifically, the ones that have not invested heavily in their own proprietary tech and are still just relying on human networks.
Okay, that's the short side. What's the long?
Simultaneously, we would long the data aggregators and the specialized AI valuation platforms. The companies that are perfectly positioned to become the sole standardized source of that structured UAD 3.6 compliant XML data that the GSEs now require.
So the old gatekeepers manage the labor. The new gatekeepers manage the data.
That's the shift in market power. The market failure was in information production.
The new gatekeepers are the data processors.
Precise.
A compelling final note to end today's deep dive. Thank you for walking us through this structural revolution.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We'll be back next time with more Talk Tickers.